All right, Jeff, it's all you.
Go ahead and throw up the first slide of the PowerPoint, please, Adam. Okay, gentlemen, this webinar is on service partnerships, or as we most commonly call it, subcontractors. You'll find out in a little while why I refer to it as a service partnership, but when I refer to a two-way street, I'm going to talk about how we can create a win-win with the people that subcontract with us. So, Adam, if you go ahead and throw up next slide. As you probably already saw on what Adam had up there initially, my name's Jeff Heller. I'm a certified snow professional and a profit first professional. I work with Adam and his lovely wife at the Green Executive, and I also own a commercial maintenance company in my hometown of Indianapolis, Indiana. Been in the business since 2005. Not much else to know about me. If you're familiar with the Snow and Ice Management Association, I'm a member and am very involved within the organization there and have been for quite a number of years. So I like snow, but I also offer lots of other services with my maintenance company. We do landscaping, we do concrete and asphalt, we provide handyman work and electrical and plumbing. So we kind of do everything but construction and janitorial and lot sweeping. So that's a little bit about me. Adam, if you could say a few words about yourself.
Sure. Adam Linneman here. The Green Executive is our consulting firm with my wife, Sarah, and Jeff. Specialize in profit first implementation, which is a cash flow management system, LMN software implementation, and green industry bookkeeping services. I have Linneman Lawn and Landscaping that has been in business for 30 years this year. Something fun about me is I'm a certified barbecue judge, and I enjoy cooking and barbecuing and doing all that fun stuff as well as eating it. So it's something I have to keep an eye on with my exercise as well.
Yeah, Adam likes to post a lot of what he's cooking in his big green egg, but somehow my invitation never seems to show up in the mail to come down there and partake of all that good food that he makes. So I don't know if we can, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you have a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask. I don't have any problem answering questions as we go, but I will leave time at the end for some Q&A. If you prefer not to unmute and ask, you can type in a question in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and Adam will be monitoring that as we go. Let's see here. If you can just answer out loud, how many of you currently have subcontractors or subcontract for somebody else?
Contemporaneous.
You both? I'm sorry, you said both, Dan?
Yes, we do both.
Okay. Anyone else?
Let's see here. Brian, I think your phone is muted, or I somehow muted your phone because there was noise in the background. There it goes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, a little bit louder though. Yep.
Okay, better? Like I'm on my phone as opposed to my crappy computer.
It is better.
Okay. That's good.
We use subs for snow, tree work, irrigation work, fertilizer, although we're potentially bringing that in-house, electricians,
Okay.
concrete, things like that.
Okay,
We
very
don't
good.
really accept anyone else, so.
All right, very good. A lot of my businesses, I use subcontractors. Going forward, I'm going to refer to these companies as service partners. A lot of people will think that, well, yeah, you can call them what you want, a service partner, a vendor partner. They're subcontractors. I actually view my people as service partners, and as we go through this, you'll see why I feel that way. Some of what I talk here will be geared more towards snow. That is where my expertise lies, but this is transferable across any service that you may offer, where you would either be a service partner for another company or you would use service partners yourself. So this is just not specifically for the snow industry. It's transferable across everything. But I have a slide up now with the word expectations. You're going to hear me mention that a lot in the next few minutes as I go through this presentation, because that is the word that any successful service partnership that you either have or are with someone else is going to, that's the word that's going to hinge on whether or not you have success with that partner. At the core of any relationship, service partnerships included, is the principle of expectation. We will continue to return to this key value, for regardless of the side of the relationship that you find yourself, it's the expectation established and the maintenance of that expectation that will be the heart and soul, or the two-way street to its success or its failure. If you could go to the next slide, Adam, please. Expectation defined. It's a strong belief that someone will or should achieve something. This session that I'm doing here, it's meant to get you thinking, to challenge you, and further the conversation in your companies surrounding service partnerships. I have a little bit different approach, and I'm hoping maybe you'll find some of my key points interesting and consider them for your own business. Now, you might think, well, maybe Jeff lives in a Pollyanna world and everything has a defined start and end, and Jeff's landscaping season ends at the beginning of November, and he's got plenty of time to get all his snow in line and find service contractors and service partners to do all his snow. And that's not what I'm saying at all. What I live in the same world you do. I find myself at times, seasons overlapping each other, not having any time for conducting proper maintenance on equipment to move it from landscaping to snow. I have the last minute customer reaching out, asking if I could take on 10 sites, and having very little time to prepare. I live in that world just like you do. What I'm talking about here is developing a protocol that your service partner becomes the most important person in your world, not the customer. And I'll have people argue that with me to the death, but the people that I service partner with, they are treated as being the king, not my customer. I will build my customer base around the service partnerships that I have. So that's what I'm talking about when I say I have a little bit different approach. And I'm not condemning anybody else's approach. This is just what works for me. And I believe I have a very solid foundation to stand on. So if you put up the next slide, Adam. Let's talk about the players in all of this. First, we have the customer. And for our purposes, a customer shall mean an organization that contracts for services from a contractor with a specific expectation of the service rendered. Next slide, please. Now we have the contractor. The contractor is the company that undertakes a contract to provide materials and/or labor to perform a service for a specific customer and meet the expectations, there's that word again, set forth by both parties, both meaning the contractor and the customer. Once we understand the relationship and the expectations of the customer and the contractor, the service partnership between the contractor and the service partner can be built, but it must be a win-win, a two-way street, so to say. Next slide. Who's the service partner? Our service partner here is an independent company or technician hired by the contractor to provide a specific service or services, and in some cases, a complete job within their area of expertise or skill set. Next slide, please. So let's talk about this service partnership and how it's defined. First, the customer must have the capacity to accept the contract threshold for service and an appreciation for the level of service being provided and the propensity to compensate for contractors' service levels. What am I saying here? Well, I'm saying that the customer must understand and accept the contract the way it's written, not a lowball customer that's going to anticipate corners being cut in an effort to save money. They also have to have an appreciation for the level of service provided, and going hand in hand with that, they must have the willingness or propensity to pay the contractor for this service. I do not compete on lowball pricing. I am typically, if not the highest, in the top 2 or 3 in my market. And all of my sales come off of selling the value of the service that we are providing. In this day and age, it's not easy to do, but there are a lot of customers out there that are still willing to pay for good service, and they see that as a value to their operation. The customer must understand the service partnership and who is doing the work and why. What do I mean by that? The customer needs to not only have a relationship with the contractor, but if this work is being subcontracted out to a service partnership, they need to know who that is and why that relationship is occurring. The trust factor must flow down from the customer to the service partner, not just from the customer to the contractor. The customer needs to acknowledge that there are not two relationships. It's not a customer contractor relationship and a contractor service partner relationship. It is one relationship that flows through all 3 levels. Anybody that I work with, whether I'm the contractor or I'm the service partner, they know who is ultimately doing the work and that is on their site. And they have an understanding of who that is and why they are there. And the why could be for several reasons. The service partner may have better knowledge of that area, better knowledge of, in my case for snow removal, the weather in that area and how to best clear snow at that particular location than the contractor does, who may be in another state. So it is vitally important for the customer to understand the 3 levels. Somebody had a question. Can you read that to me, Adam?
Brian's asking, at what point do you explain to the customer that there will be a service partner involved in the process?
At the time we're reviewing the contract is when I typically do it. And sometimes I'll even have the service partner there, or if I'm the service partner, I will be there at that meeting as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a verbal question?
Yes.
When you say reviewing the contract, is that before it is signed or after it is signed?
I've done it both ways. It's a timing thing. Sometimes the opportunity will present itself as we're reviewing the contract before we sign it. Sometimes it's after, but when it is after, if I'm the contractor, I will tell the customer up front who will be doing the work on the property. I do run into occasion those contracts where they don't want a third-party vendor there. If we take on that business, we'll self-perform it. But usually when I explain that, I will tell them why I would use a service partner as opposed to self-performing. And most of the time it falls under the umbrella of what I just mentioned before, that service partner. Maybe it's best I give an example. I have a lot of sites in northern Indiana. The weather up there is quite different than it is here in Indianapolis with lake effect snow. I can self-perform that work up there, but I use service partners in all of my locations up there because they understand that weather better and they're better equipped to handle these multi-hour, sometimes multi-day lake effect snow events there. Usually when I explain that to the customer, they understand and appreciate that. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, good. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, let's talk about the contractor a little bit and what they look for in finding a service provider. It starts with establishing the connection between the customer, the contractor, and the service partner, as I just alluded to. With that connection is the expectation. Again, there's that word. You're going to hear me say it a lot. The two-way street, or the win-win, lives and dies within the expectations of all the parties. So let's talk about the relationship between the contractor and the service partner. The contractor needs to know the service partner inside and out and why they are interested in contracting and what goals they have. The contractor needs to listen and comprehend the service partner's needs, their abilities, their financial situation, and their expectations. This conversation must be had. I didn't mention this when I talked about my bio a little bit, but my first 7 years in the industry, I worked for a national maintenance company. I'm not sure if anybody on here has had an experience of working with a national maintenance company. I was actually a district manager for the state of Indiana, and we were typically forced to find contractors at the last minute to handle an influx of business coming in, somebody usually handing us 50 or 60 or 100 locations throughout the state. And it was a scramble to try and find, I'll use the word subcontractors, because back then that's what they were and that's how they were treated. And there was a steep learning curve, and it was a one-size-all contract that was designed to fit all the contractors. So basically it was shoved down their throat. Their desire to do the work basically centered upon the fact that they could get multiple locations and what they deemed at that point a fair amount of compensation without ever thinking through or looking through the contract as a whole. So I've been on both sides of this, and it's because of that experience that I developed the way that I do it now. And again, not saying that I'm doing it the right way. It's just, I saw a lot of people get burned in that relationship. And that's not something I wanted to have on my conscience with my company. So when I meet with potential service partners, I'm asking all the questions. It's not just, hey, I got 50 locations, can you cover them all? And, you know, if it actually snows this winter, we'll worry about that then, if you can't get to them all or whatever. So I have all of these conversations up front. I listen to what they have to tell me. I listen to what their needs are. I listen to what abilities they have. I talk to them about areas that they can cover and not cover. And I ask them about what their expectations of me are. The success of this service partnership is totally 100% on the contractor from my perspective. It's the contractor that needs to align and meet the expectations of the customer, the contractor, and the service partner. Other things that, as a contractor, that I'm looking for with my service partners: site information, their ability based on site maps to be able to meet the customer's expectation. The contractor needs to know the site, and they need to be a resource for the service partner. It's not a relationship where the contractor hands off the site map and says, good luck. The contractor should be on the site. They should know the site as well as if they were performing the work themselves on it. They need to be a resource for the service partner. They also need to know what access the service partner has to weather information, historical weather information. They need, as I mentioned before, to know some financials about the service partner. They need to know how skilled their labor force is. That's where we would get into talking about production rates and what the service partner's employees are capable of handling. As far as number 2 there on that slide, the contractor's responsibility in building mutual trust and rapport with the service partner. I can't underestimate enough the need to value that service partner. This is not a transactional relationship. It is a partnership. It is a relationship that should last for years. The service partner needs to come first. As I mentioned before, I value my service partners more than I value my customers. That's not to say that I don't value my customers, but it is very difficult to find a good partner to partner with, and whether it be snow, landscaping, electrical, irrigation, whatever. They're difficult. Good ones are very difficult to come by. I'm in a relationship now as a service partner with a contractor. He's based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I handle several sites for him, but for both landscaping and snow here in Indiana. I don't enter into those relationships very often where I'm the service partner, but this guy insisted on knowing me for a minimum of 2 years before he would ever discuss doing any kind of work with me. We met in 2019 at the Snow and Ice Management Association Symposium in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it was actually 3 years before he came to me with any work that he was willing to give me as a service partner. But in the interim, during those 3 years, we spent a lot of time together on the phone, in person, whenever we would be at the same events. And he got to know me. He got to know my business. He asked me all the same questions that I'm telling you that you need to ask anybody that you're considering a service partnership with. Now, do I do it that way? No, I don't. It's usually not a 2-year commitment before I ever give anybody any work, but it's a very in-depth conversation, multiple conversations over a period of time before I would decide to actually partner with somebody. Investment, as I just said, it's the key. Time, even personal time, that you have to give in order to start and maintain this relationship. And in some cases, there's some financial backing that may be required as well. You know, your service partner may need assistance with purchases. I've done that for my service partners, where they've needed help with equipment, or they've needed help with materials. I've done that for them. I view the relationship as a long-term commitment. And Adam will tell you, I'm famous for saying this line: if there's one thing you take away from one of my conversations or presentations, it's this. And I'm at that point right now. So if you take something away from my conversation here, my presentation, it's this. It's this one principle to live by. And that's the unscrupulous margin gained from a service partner may seem sweet for a single season, but pales in the face of fair margin gained for years through transparency of the two-way street that I've been discussing, that takes into account the time it takes to secure the service partner in the first place. What do I mean by that? There's a cost to replace subcontractors, and I'm using that term on purpose. There's a cost to replacing subcontractors each year. You have onboarding costs, you have costs of your employees trying to find them, and you have the cost of the learning curve. If you're putting a new partner on one of your properties every year, there's a learning curve to that, and that causes a lot of frustration and stress, not only on your part, but the subcontractor's part and the customer's part. They don't want somebody coming in new every year that needs half a season to get up to speed with how their property works. So, like I said, if there's anything you take away from this, take away what I just mentioned here, please. let's see here. How I mentioned financials with the service partner. It's extremely important that you're meeting an achievable financial expectation that both you as the contractor or you as the service partner can enjoy profits versus the risk that you take. You need to figure out what the goal is. You need to figure out what your service partner's production potential is, and can that realize the goal that you're setting forth? What are they really good at? What do they need help with? What incentives can you provide them to achieve the goal so that everything's a win-win or the two-way street? What type of expertise do they bring to the table? What type of expertise do you bring to the table as the contractor? Can you help them with equipment? Can you help them with deciding what equipment needs to go on a particular site to take care of things efficiently? What about routing? What about pre-planning in the case of snow removal, the attack each storm? Are you working with your service partner on that, or are you just tossing them to the wolves and hope they figure it out and hope that the customer doesn't call you complaining? You need to keep in mind the proximity of your service partner to the areas that you need serviced. As I stated before, the service partner is king for me. I will build my customer base around the service partner, not force the service partner to go to areas that they can't efficiently and effectively serve. It's my experience that service partners do not grow on trees and should be treated as true partners. There will always be somebody out there willing to do the work. But if you do not treat this as a two-way street or set up a win-win for both you and your service partner, the quality of people that you will find going down the road is going to get less and less and less with each passing year. As a contractor, you need to add value where you can make a difference in the service partner's efforts. Pay attention to what they're telling you and listen and figure out ways to become more effective together with the service partner. You need to, as a contractor, you need to provide both expertise in snow, in green, in asphalt, in concrete, in irrigation, in anything. They look to you for that expertise. As far as disagreements, which they will come up, get out ahead of the issues. Full transparency. As a contractor, do not abuse the authority of the relationship. Serve rather than dictate. Next slide, Adam. Here's a picture. This is a Pepsi Cola facility somewhere in Wisconsin. I was brought in as a contractor to help figure out an effective way to clear these docks. As you can see, this is a pretty elaborate setup where the trailer will be backed into the dock to a certain point, and then this system will take over guiding the trailer safely to the dock door. So they're minimizing damage to the door, the building, the dock plate, and other semis that might be next to them. We've had to clear this by hand. There are 47 dock doors at this location. All of them had to be cleared by hand, and we were not able to use any type of salt. This is an example of where we were able to work with our service partner and mutually tackle this problem together so we could do it more efficiently. they were willing to pay what needed to be paid to clear these docks, but their bills were pretty astronomical as everything was done by hand. We cleared out every flake of snow in here and ended up using liquid brine in those areas because we weren't allowed to use any salt because it would just eat up their dock system there. But this was solved by working with the service partner and mutually coming up with a plan to do this more efficiently. You know, if you have a subcontractor relationship, these things are unheard of. You leave it to them to figure it out. And if they can't, then you're ultimately paying the price with the customer. And in some cases, you're losing that business. Let's move on to the next slide. How about the service partner? What do they look for in a contractor? Well, before they can look for anything, the service partner needs to understand the why. Why are they a service partner? Why are they willing to do this? Once they can answer that question, then they're in a better position to look for a contractor that best suits their business. When I'm looking at working for a contractor, as in the case of the guy out of Wisconsin that I do work for, I'm looking for his willingness to invest time in me, to understand my business, to understand what expertise I bring to the table. I have the honest discussion with him as far as where my expertise lacks and where I need his expertise. And I also want him to understand my expectations, my financial expectations, my expectations in communication, my expectations in how to handle a storm. As far as my evaluation process, I will visit the contractor's site. I'll ask questions regarding other relationships that they have with service partners. And I will ask if I can talk to some of their service partners. I really want to find out, is this just lip service, or are they working with other companies and treating them as true service partners? The guy I work with in Wisconsin, he treats me as a true service partner. We communicate before each event. There have been times where I have sent invoices where I have made errors, and they were errors to my detriment, and he catches them and changes them and makes sure that I'm paid the correct amount of money. Does that mean I purposely get sloppy with my billing? No, but he requires his bills to be turned pretty quickly after an event. And yep, sometimes I make mistakes, but he catches them and reports them to me, and we make things right. And I value that immensely in our relationship. How do you handle contractual issues with a contractor? Well, obviously you want to do it prior to signing the contract. What does that involve? That involves reading the entire contract. Human nature is for us we'll look at payment terms, we'll give a quick glance over the scope of work, and we'll look at what we're getting paid, and that's it. And that is a recipe for disaster. As a former person working for a national maintenance company, I can tell you that they actually count on their subcontractors not reading the agreement in whole. I will just caution you, whenever you're looking at subcontracting or establishing a service partnership, or if you're the partner, looking to go to work for a contractor, you need to read that contract. Any issues need to be handled transparently and before you ever sign off on it. I could probably spend a whole session just talking about contracts, but what about seasonal reconciliations and damage assessments? Damage assessments are never an issue for me. We go out and do a preseason site inspection and we note any existing damage. We go out postseason and we do another site assessment. And if there are damages that we caused, we fix them, no questions asked. And most of the time it's done before the contractor would ever even come to me and ask if there were any issues with damaged turf or broken curbs or broken irrigation lines, anything of that nature. Seasonal reconciliations, what am I talking about there? It's financial reconciliations. Was everybody made whole? The partner that I alluded to, or the contractor that I alluded to, that I'm a service partner for, we do reconciliations after every single snow event, and we do them monthly for the landscaping. Everything's fresh in our minds. We're both on the same page, and we can close that month out and move on to the next one and not have to worry about, was I paid for that or did I bill for that? It's all handled immediately. How about the next page, Adam, please? One size fits all pricing. I don't know if any of you have been burned by this, but I have. It's the taking of one contract, one pricing model, and shoving it down your subcontractor. Again, I'm purposely using the word subcontractor in this place because this is not a service partnership, but it's one size fits all pricing. It's made for everybody, usually to the benefit of the contractor. What's more important here? It's communication before dollars, relationship before margin. I'm not going to get in. I could spend many sessions talking about revenue options, but my point here is that there's many different ways that you can set up a contract. I have contracts with my service partners where my customer, say in the snow season, is paying me a seasonal amount, but it works better for my service partner if I pay him on a per occurrence, per application amount in snow removal. And I will gladly do that. And I have been able to set those up in a way that my service partner wins and that I make the margins that I need as well. So you can see here the different types of revenue options. We have hourly, and then we have a host of cost plus margin type contracts, seasonal, per occurrence, a hybrid of both. But my point here is there should never be a one-way street, a one-size-fit-all approach that's shoved down a service partner's throat. And again, this is how I do it. I'm not saying that other people do it wrong, but this has served me well for the 12 years that I've had my company. So I value the relationship over the margin. You know, in our commercial world, we're always reminded that the customer is always right and the king. In my world, the service partner is king. I've mentioned that several times here. I will build my customer base around my service partners. In the relationship I have with the guy in with Wisconsin, he stays away from liquids. He understands the value in snow removal for using liquid brine, but he stays away from it for the sole reason of that they carve time and occurrences out for his service providers, meaning that these liquids are so fast acting and do such a good job of taking care of things that sometimes it cuts hours out of his contractors' time on those lots. And a lot of these service partners and contractors rely on being able to keep their people and equipment working for so many hours out of the week during the off season, or in this case, the snow season. So I don't personally do that. I'm going to do what's safe and efficient for taking care of that lot. But this is just an example of the relationship that I have with this gentleman's company out of Wisconsin, that he is very conscious of the fact of trying to meet all the needs and concerns that I have when I'm serving his property. Regardless of whatever options you use of these, or whatever agreement there would be in place, there should be flexibility. Even if, like I mentioned earlier, you have a different contract with the customer and you have to pay the service partner differently from the contract that you have with your customer. I don't want to spend too much time here on the revenue options. Like I said, I could go on and on and on, but let's go to the next slide, Adam. Okay, let's talk about final thoughts here, and if I can challenge you a little bit. You know, we started with the word expectations. You know, that was on one of my very first slides. And I've mentioned that word probably no fewer than 24 times during my presentation. But whether you find yourself as the contractor or the service partner, here's the challenge. The contractor, what type of service partners do you have? Are you investing enough time and knowledge into the relationship, or are you just using the downhill pricing approach, meaning the one size fit all, shove it down their throat? The only person that needs to be protected here is the contractor approach. How about the service partner? What type of contractors are you working with? Are they able to provide you options that enhance the chance of achieving success? Or are they providing you enough information so you can make educated decisions about whether or not you want to work for them? Are they shoving that one size fits all pricing model down your throat? Is that somebody you want to work for? So I want to open it up now, the last few minutes that we had, if any questions, any disagreements or agreements with the approach that I take in my business. I'm hoping that this information, you can take some of it and apply it in your own businesses. But with that, I'll open it up now to any questions.
Brian? Do you have anything?
Yeah, Jeff, what is your preferred method to pay your service contractors?
Well, what makes it the easiest, I think, for everybody is to mirror the contract that you have with the customer. So if it's a seasonal contract and you're being paid seasonally, I would prefer to pay my service partner that way. And in a lot of cases I do, but I also work with service partners that they don't have the cash flow that I have. They need to be paid more frequently than monthly. So I will set it up with them usually on hybrid type or a per occurrence type contract, and I will pay them immediately after the event ends. Now, I will caveat that by saying that is assuming that they're out executing the scope of work and the level of service that was laid out in the contract to a T. But I usually don't have any problems with my service partners cutting corners or doing sloppy work, because they understand that I'm willing to pay them what the job is actually worth, and I'm willing to pay them on their terms. Does it make things a little more difficult for me? Yeah, it does. But like I said in the presentation, I put the relationship with my service partners over the relationship I have with the customers.
Thank you.
And Jeff, you know, the same thing can be said for your team members and employees, thinking about it that way, right?
Exactly.
The customer's not
Exactly.
always right. I mean, you know.
Exactly. You know, I said at the beginning, this can carry this concept can be used in a lot of different scenarios. Your contractors, your vendors, your employees, your service partners. I try to establish that same type of relationship with employees. I do a lot of handyman type work. I have 5 or 6 guys that work directly for me. And if any of you do any type of handyman type work, those people are very hard to come by. Good ones that will answer the phone and take care of business and do a quality job, and somebody you don't have to worry about out in front of your customers. So every single one of those guys are paid immediately upon the job being completed, even though I may not see my revenue from that job for anywhere from 30 to 45 days.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just have one question. I have never worked and had like a service partner. Is there a certain percentage of revenue that the contractor should add on so that you get paid being the contractor, but also make it fair for the service partner?
That would be determined by your overhead and what you need to make to meet your profit needs. I will say that I have customers. I have a bank here in town that I do work for. They have 34 locations. It's easier to have this type of setup with a relationship with a service partner as opposed to a subcontractor when you look at your portfolio as a whole. There are some locations that I take a beating on with this bank, with landscaping and snow clearing, because they have some locations that are farther out away from the city. My service partner will take them, but it costs more money, and in some cases it costs more than what I'm being paid for that site. But that's okay. I look over their whole portfolio of work, and as long as I'm making the margins that I need over that whole portfolio of work, I'm fine with that. So you know, for snow removal, as an example, when I have a service partner that's actually handling the work for me, the way my business is set up, I'm looking to make in the range of about 20% margin. That usually allows me enough there that my service partner is getting paid a fair wage to do a good job on their properties. But it'll vary. It just depends on what your overhead is and what margins you need to meet all of your obligations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay.
I'd be remiss if I didn't put out there that, as Adam mentioned, the Green Executive, we work with Profit First. All three of us are Profit First certified professionals. So anybody that would have any interest in learning more about that, I would encourage you to reach out to Adam or I. I can be reached at Jeff@thegreenexecutive.com, and Adam can be reached at Adam@thegreenexecutive.com. So I appreciate you all taking the time to spend it with me this afternoon. It's hard for everybody to get done what they need to in the course of the day. So I certainly appreciate you taking an hour out of your time. I hope this was something that was beneficial. If you'd like to learn more about this, said you can certainly reach out to me at Jeff@thegreenexecutive.com.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a good rest of your Thursday afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.